campaign is now saying they want a second debate. What does that tell us? Joining us with more reaction to tonight's debate, Texas Senator Ted Cruz is with us. Senator, how do you interpret that and your overall thoughts on the debate tonight?
Well, listen, I'm skeptical that Kamala's team will have her do a second debate. I think they're going to back out of that. I think they're going to send her back to Joe Biden's basement. I think we probably will not see Kamala emerge again from the basement, sort of like the groundhog in her shadow. She's not going to come out again from the basement until election night, other than to go for rallies and read from teleprompters. And listen, I got to say tonight, what Kamala demonstrated is, number one, she cannot defend her disastrous record. Her record is an absolute train wreck. So instead, what she did, what we saw tonight in this, quote, debate, was her repeating memorized set pieces from her stump speech and from her convention speech. The very opening question, the most important question in any election, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? She refused to answer that because she couldn't answer that, because nobody, unless you are a Mexican drug lord, nobody else is better off than they were 4 years ago. So she didn't answer that. Instead, she's like, I'm from a middle-class family. I want things better for you. And no aspect on inflation. She didn't address that she cast the tie-breaking vote on trillions of dollars of spending that caused inflation, hurting Americans across this country. On energy, she didn't address that she and Joe Biden have waged war on American energy over and over and over again, driving up the cost of gasoline and everything else for Americans. On the border, she didn't address her own personal responsibility, the invasion, the crime, the murders, the women sexually assaulted, the children brutalized. She didn't take responsibility for any of that. And then on foreign policy, I actually thought on foreign policy she was the weakest. It was absurd when she turned to Donald Trump and says, well, everyone knows you were weak and ineffective. Listen, if Donald Trump were still in the White House, the two wars that broke out under her leadership and Joe Biden's would not have happened. Russia would not have invaded Ukraine, and we would not have the war in Israel. And she took no responsibility for that weakness, nor did she have a word to say about the over $100 billion that she and Joe Biden have flowed to Iran? All of her records she ran away from, and I got to say, the ABC moderators were complicit in her running a completely fact-free debate performance.
I think that's well said, Senator. I mean, and there's so much that we don't understand. Defund, dismantle, reimagine, ICE, the police, the mini-app. They wanted to talk about January 6th. There was 600 riots in the summer of 2020. She tweets out the Minnesota bail fund 4 days after the police precinct is burned. And, you know, they won't stop. They shouldn't stop. We're not going to stop. All things that she said. 18 to 24-year-olds are stupid. Abolish the filibuster to pass the Green New Deal. Inflation is transitory. The border's secure. We're proud of Bidenomics. The country needs to be woke. We'll never deport illegals. And now we're going to give free sex change operations to convicted felons and illegal immigrants. How is that going to go over in your state of Texas? I would imagine not so well.
Look, it goes over terribly. But what you just did, what I just did, is what the Trump campaign needs to do between now and Election Day, which is lay out the actual facts of her record, because she won't confront them. So for example, on abortion, she said, no, I'm not for late-term abortions, 8 and 9-month abortions. Well, she has voted for legislation that would legalize abortion up until the moment of birth. When she says, I don't know what you're talking about, abortion after birth, well, Kamala Harris voted against the Born Alive Infant Protection Act, which says that if in the course of an abortion a baby is alive, is breathing, is outside the womb, you can't just kill the baby. She voted no. And so her actual record needs to be systematically laid out when it comes to crime. This is someone who has supported defund the police. This is someone who has supported defund ICE. This is someone, Kamala Harris, who compared ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, to the KKK. But we need to make sure those facts get before the American people, because ABC is not going to do it. The corporate media is not going to do it. And listen, her radical record is radical the same way my opponent, Colin Allred, who's running against me, both of them vote repeatedly in favor of open borders. Both of them vote for trillions of dollars of spending we don't have. Both of them vote for the war against oil and gas and American energy. Both of them vote in favor of defunding the police. That's their record. But I got to tell you, The left right now, they are flooding money to Kamala Harris. They're flooding money to my opponent because they want to deceive the American people. Both Kamala Harris and my opponent are running ads with Donald Trump's border wall in it, even though both of them have opposed it their entire careers. The hypocrisy is enormous, which is why we need to bring the facts back up and prosecute this case on the merits.